Okay, so that is totally not the story. Totally not. According to our scriptures, the prince Siddhattha, he was a pampered child of the king Suddhodana, and he lived in the country. Uh, he lived in the city called Kapilavattu. All right. The king Suddhodana heard from the Brahmins, from the priests, that his son may either become a king or spiritual leader, and the king was afraid that his son would become a spiritual leader. So the idea was that the king will prevent his son from ever encountering any suffering, and therefore there will never be a reason to become a spiritual leader, and therefore his son will become a king. But one day, the one day his son wanted to see the royal garden, and on the way to the royal garden, according to our scriptures, which is it's a little hard to believe, so get ready for some interesting things. But that's what our scriptures say, the Theravada scriptures. They say that the gods, God meaning God, gods, the deities, they came in the appearance first of an old man. All right, so a god came down, and he made the appearance of an old man, so that the prince becomes disinterested in in um, in the life of luxury and wants to go to the forest to become an ascetic. You know what's an ascetic? Ascetic is like hermit. Do you know what's a hermit? Okay, so what about rishi? No. What about recluse? No. Okay. So these are all synonyms for one thing, and that's a person who left to the forest to meditate. So you can call that person ascetic or hermit or rishi or recluse. It's basically the same. There might be some little differences in the usage, but more or less it's the same thing. So if you become a monk, you have become an ascetic, you have become a recluse, you have become a hermit, you have become a rishi. I am an ascetic, I am a recluse, I am a hermit, I am a rishi. Okay? But we would use the word rishi in Burmese yete for those who are not officially members of the community of monks. But for somebody who's not a Buddhist, for example, for a Christian, for a Hindu, I would probably be a rishi. I would probably be somebody who left home to become a monk, or to live at home, to live in the forest, or to meditate in a monastery. Okay. So the king was afraid that his son would become a rishi, that he would leave the palace, and go to the forest and meditate. But the gods, they were more clever than that, and they created a form of an old man. So then, when the young prince saw this old man, he asked his charioteer. Do you know what's a charioteer? Someone who's driving the chariot, not like this, but like this. And the charioteer explained that this is an old man, because the young prince has never ever seen an old man, or so the story goes. And the young man then asks, and will I also become like this person? And then the charioteer explains, yes, all of us will have to become old one day. So the prince totally lost all of his enthusiasm about enjoyment of life, because he thought, oh, like, I'm losing it. I will become one day an old man, with a humpback, and going with a stick, and with problem with the eyes, problem with ears. And so he thought that it doesn't make any sense to enjoy pleasures if we lose them. Okay, because there is the idea that he still didn't have, but it was there, like maybe there is something that's permanent. In these Western cultures, there is already a clear decision that there is nothing permanent. That the only thing that you can achieve permanence is to die and be born in heaven. And they believe that there is permanence in heaven. But for this life, they believe there is nothing, that no way how you can achieve permanence. Permanent pleasure, permanent peace, permanent happiness. No, they have given up. So, because of that, in these Western countries, you do not get anything higher than sensual pleasures. So sensual pleasures is the ultimate achievement in these countries. In the US, Canada, the South America, and Europe, and Australia, all of those, for them, the best thing that there is in the world is sensual pleasures. Sensual pleasures means pleasant experience on the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So they are refining sensual pleasures because that's the best thing they have. They don't have anything better than that. So they're refining sensual pleasures in the ear, in the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. That's why you have so many ads, because people are sharing with each other that, hey, we have found another way how to enjoy sensual pleasures, because this is the best thing you can have in your life. All right? Now, this is totally different world from Asia, where people know that there is something better than sensual pleasures, and that is meditative pleasure. So you have sensual pleasure, meditative pleasure. In these countries, there is nothing like meditative pleasure. Yes, some Christian sects and some Jewish sects, they do have meditation, but it has not been successful. The popularization of meditative pleasures has not been successful in the Western countries, but it has been very, very successful in Asia. So in Asia, people know, hey, meditative pleasures, yes, that's higher, that's better. So instead of seeking sensual pleasures, they're seeking meditative pleasures. That's why they're not that high developed. You know, like for me, comparing the sensual pleasures in Europe and in Asia is not comparable. It's very not developed, because the attention, the focus is on meditative pleasures. So, or we could almost say spiritual pleasures, but that's not, yes, it's a little bit in that way, but it's a little bit more complicated. So the people get happy with their life when it is virtuous. So it is a kind of attitude pleasure. So they have pleasure from the very fact that they follow rules. Just that very fact, they follow rules, that they don't kill, they don't steal, they don't commit adultery. That means they don't cheat on their wife or husband, they don't tell lies, they don't drink alcohol or take drugs. They are proud of that. For them, this is a special pleasure. That's because it's systematic. You know, for example, Christians have their systematic rules, but they never follow them. You know, they officially do not follow them. Like the number one rule is you will never depict the God. And wherever you go, God is depicted. And as soon as you break any of the 10 rules, officially, you know, in a monastery, in a church, then all of them are broken. Nobody cares. Because there is no reason to follow them, you understand? As soon as you look at the so-called Decalogue, then immediately you see, hey, actually, but I saw a picture of God in the church, and I saw it in the TV, and I saw it there. So if this one doesn't have to be followed, why the rest would have to be followed? It doesn't make any sense. From the beginning of Christianity, there has been this problem, you know. So we do not have that thing in Buddhism. You know, in Buddhism, there is no way how you can officially break any of the precepts. Never. It's like totally no way. That's an interesting thing. You can never kill or steal or commit adultery or cheat or tell lie or drink alcohol and get away with it as that it is fine. It's totally impossible. Totally impossible. Everybody knows, oh, that's wrong, that's bad, should not be done. So Buddhism has been very successful in promoting virtue that is systematic. So we have 5 rules, 8 rules, 10 rules, and 91 billion rules. So each person can choose the set, that they like to follow. All right. So lay people would usually follow 5 precepts, and they would follow 8 precepts on special days, and 10 precepts on sometimes, but usually 10 precepts are reserved for beginning monastics, and the over 91 billion is for the monastics who have the full ordination. Okay, so when the young prince went outside, he saw this old man, and he believed that maybe there is a way out. Because if he was already fine that this is the way it is, there would be no reason to grieve. You have bad only when you have good, and you have good only when you have bad. If everything is the same, then there is nothing to compare, so there is neither happiness nor suffering. Do you understand what I'm saying? What I've said now is extremely deep and very hard to understand. If there is everything the same, then you cannot say that it is bad or good, because we say bad only when we compare it with something else, or that it's good when we compare it with something else. Now, when the prince saw the old man, he thought, oh, this is bad for me, because he is comparing it with his previous view that his pleasure will be forever. And he's wondering, okay, so now my pleasure will not be forever. What if there is a way how to enjoy forever? Now, his friend, the charioteer, Channa was his name, he told him that there is no way. So the prince was dumbfounded. He was like, I thought that pleasure is forever, and now it's not forever. So what am I going to do? So he was thinking about it. They went again. A month later, according to our scriptures, a month later, they went again outside. And at that time, he saw an ill man. And he again asked the charioteer, what's this? Again, the ill man was actually a god making that appearance. Because the king has already, removed all ill and old people, from the way. So there was no way how there would be a human like that. But the gods, they apparently enjoyed having fun with the prince. So they were coming and showing him some interesting visions. So he saw that. And it's also believed that only the prince and the charioteer saw it. Because if the guards and people around saw it, then they would be removing it. Okay, or him or her. So then the prince again asked the charioteer, what's that? He learned it's an ill person, and will it happen to me? Yes, it will happen to me. Okay, so let's go back to the palace. They never made it to the garden, because when he saw these shocking visions, he always wanted to go back to the palace. Never means during 3 out of the 4 travels. So during the 3rd travel, he saw a dead person. At that time, more deities were needed, so there was one who was playing the dead one, and 3 or 4 who were carrying the dead one. So the prince, you see, 3 times was shocked, again and again and again. Then 4th time, the deities, they created the appearance of a recluse. Now you know what's a recluse? So someone who left from home to the forest or to a monastery to meditate or to engage themselves in spiritual practice. And so he saw a recluse and he thought, what is this? And so he asked the charioteer, and according to our scriptures, one god actually entered the charioteer's mind and used the charioteer's body to talk to the prince. And so the charioteer explained that the recluses are dedicating themselves to the so-called 10 ways of good deeds. That means generosity, morality, meditation, paying respect to elders and wise and the recluses, then doing work, or let's say supporting by one's own assistance to virtuous people, then sharing one's merit with the departed spirits, then rejoicing of other people's merits, of other people's good deeds, then listening to the teaching, to the law or to the spiritual, to the religious teachings, teaching the religious teachings, and reminding ourselves that these 9 are good things. So the charioteer explained to the prince these 10 things that characterize a good person. But at that time it was given as characteristics of the recluse. And also he explained that the recluse dedicates himself to the meditation on loving kindness. At that time the Buddha's teachings was not available yet, so the charioteer could not teach the prince about meditation on insight or that kind of thing, because that was yet to come. So the prince was very happy about this recluse, and he praised the recluse, and then, if I remember correctly, he continued to the park. So for the 4th time he made it. So it took him 3 months to get to the park, 3 months. But by that time he was very clear that he wants to become an ascetic. So the king lost. The king's game was lost, and the prince was decided. So then this prince, now clear that sensual pleasures are not the way he wants to go. He wants to go through the meditative pleasures. He left the palace at night. There was a short time after his son was born. But it was not like, okay, so you're my wife and son, I don't care about you, I will do whatever I want. It's the other way. It's like in the US, in the past, there was gold rush. Do you know what's gold rush? Yeah, there was a period when in California, right? I think there were some other sites too, but California most remarkably. So there was gold rush, and there were families which were very far from that area, and they were very, very poor. So the husband said, you know what, my dear family, I will go to the place where is the gold, and either I will bring you, some golden nuggets, or I will not come back. And so it's like that with the prince. So the prince was like, hey, my dear family, you are here suffering. You are here enduring these sensual pleasures which will bring you old age, illness, and death. Now let me go to the forest. I will be searching for the golden nuggets, the spiritual golden nuggets, the way to the eternal peace. And then if I find it, I will come back and I will teach it back to you. So he left. And then he was dedicating himself to the various practices which he believed that would be helpful. He also followed the instruction of 2 very famous ascetics, of 2 very famous recluses, who were teaching deep, deep meditative states. But he was able to recognize by his mental power, by his wisdom, that these states are actually not the ultimate goal. They're not the ultimately eternal achievement, that they are also impermanent. And so he decided to leave those teachers even after attaining the highest attainment that they taught, even after being invited to teach it to other students. He declined to teach it to others because he felt like his journey is not finished, so he continued to search. And it took him 6 long years. Why long? It's long when it is filled with pain. And indeed, the prince Siddhattha had to undergo a lot of pain because he was dedicating himself to very special ascetic practices that were believed to work at those times. It was not like that he made it. He probably didn't make up himself those practices. Somebody told him, or somewhere he heard, if you don't breathe, maybe you can get something. If you don't eat, maybe you can get something. And so he tried to avoid breathing, he tried to avoid eating, and he underwent very, very excruciating pain. In the end, as he was on the brink of death, the gods came up to him and they said, you know what? We barely know whether you are alive or not. If you continue in this, we will nourish you by the heavenly nourishment so that you don't die. And he thought, well, it doesn't make sense. So I'm trying here to avoid nourishment to become enlightened, and now these gods, they will nourish me anyway. So then I would be actually deceiving myself and everyone else. So and moreover, at this stage, probably everyone else would die. So he thought, okay, there is no way how anyone else could get further, in this practice. So he came to the conclusion that this practice does not work. Right? And then he recognized, he remembered the time when he, as a very young child, and now different Buddhist sects say a different childhood. So some sects says 5 years, some 7 years, some 16 years. We say 1 month. But anyway, it is believed that in his childhood, at one time, his father was plowing at a plowing ceremony. His father, the king, but it was more of a ceremonial plowing. So he would take the ceremonial plow and plow, to inspire everyone to be plowing as a king. You see, I, the king, I plow, so you all also should be plowing. And during this festival, the prince was kept under a rose apple tree, and he spontaneously thought that he will meditate. So he sat down in meditation. He meditated on breath, just like you meditate on breath. And then as he was meditating on breath, he was able to achieve the first level of absorption. How do you achieve first level of absorption? You need to get through that little cloud or that light. You will have to get some cloud or light or something like that. Then after you have it, that light will become brighter and brighter and clearer and stronger and stronger. If you do not attach to it and you continue practicing with your breath, well, then you can actually achieve the first absorption. If you get attached to it, well, then your meditation object changes from breath to white color. If you change from breath to white color, then you may get some psychic powers. So you will know if someone is supposed to die tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, you will know it. And if somebody's cow gets lost somewhere, then you will know where their cow got lost. But you will also know anything else that you want to know, So you will get a kind of psychic power. But this is not the aim of the practice. The aim is that you achieve these absorptions. So you achieve deep absorption. In the absorption, you can stay for a long time without any pain. Did you ever have pain in your meditation, in your legs? Or in your back? Yeah, on the hardwood. It's better if you actually sit on something comfortable, like on a cushion and on a carpet, But if you sit longer, let's say 30 minutes or 1 hour, it's very common that you would probably have pain in your legs or in your knees or calves or thighs or feet. And when you achieve this first absorption, this pain disappears. So the mind gets so much absorbed in the pain that the pain is no more perceptible because the mind is too much preoccupied with the object. So he has achieved this level as the young child. And then when he was in the forest, following these austere practices, these ascetic practices, self-torturing practices, then he realized that when he was a little child, he achieved this absorption on breath. So he decided that this is actually a good thing, and he returned to the meditation on breath. And as he was meditating on breath, he felt that this is a good thing to do. So that's where he was. He basically returned to the level where he was when he was 1 month old. And he continued from there. So at one time he went to a Bodhi tree, the tree of enlightenment. It's actually ficus, Ficus is the type of the tree. And he sat down under that tree and he thought, I will either become enlightened here or I will die here. And as he was sitting there, he achieved his first level of absorption, and then he moved on to the second level of absorption, and then third level of absorption, the fourth level of absorption. They are refined concentration levels. And then, when he exited from his fourth level of absorption, he considered what are his past lives. And he was able to remember his past lives. He was able to remember 1 past life, 2 past lives, 3, 5, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, thousands of past lives. He was able to remember the time when the world appears and when the world disappears. And then he was able to remember several cycles of the world. So this was in the first part of the night. The night in Buddhism is divided into 3 parts. Okay, so this happened during the first part of the night. Now during the second part of the night, he again used these deep levels of absorption to gain power over his mind. And then using this power of his mind, he looked at the arising and passing of living beings. So he saw how beings are born, how they die, how they are born in another life and they die again, based on the actions and the words that they do. He saw that people and beings who kill, steal, commit adultery, who tell lies, who drink alcohol, those who blame enlightened beings, and those who have wrong view, such as that giving is not useful or that respecting parents is not useful, and so on. So he saw that these beings, they are born in the world of animals, in the world of hell, in the world of ghosts. But he also saw that those who follow the 5 precepts, so they do not kill, do not steal, do not commit adultery, do not tell lies, do not drink alcohol, they do not blame enlightened beings, and they do not have a wrong view, so they believe that there is a merit from giving, there is a merit from paying respect to one's parents, there are beings who spontaneously appear, such as in the heaven, in hell, in the ghost realm. So these beings, saw the Buddha to be, are born in heaven and as humans. So this was during the second part of the night, second third. And during the third of the night, the Buddha to be now considered there are mental defilements. Mental defilement, that's greed, hatred, ignorance. Okay, so being greedy, hating, not understanding the way how the world works and how to get free from it, that is defilement. And the Buddha was looking at where is this defilement coming from? And he saw that mental defilement is coming from craving. There's a desire. And then he was considering, is it possible to get rid of this mental defilement? And he saw that it's just the craving that makes this mental defilement. So without the craving, there is no mental defilement. And then he was wondering how to do that. And he saw the Eightfold Noble Path. Right? So those are the 4 craving noble truths. So we have 4 suffering noble truths and 4 craving noble truths. The 4 craving noble truths are not that famous because the Buddha didn't teach it that much. But that's how the Buddha started. He first considered craving, its origin, its cessation, and the path to the cessation. But right after he considered the craving, he considered, the mental defilement, he then considered suffering. And he considered, so there is suffering. Where is it coming from? Aha, it's coming from craving. So the previous quadruplet, or the previous 4 things, are 4 noble truths of mental defilement rather than craving. And the second 4 noble truths are related to suffering. So he's considering, okay, there is suffering, why is it there? Because of craving. Well, then if there is no craving, there is no suffering. How to do that? Through the Eightfold Noble Path. So that is the way how he became the Buddha. Through this realization of these 4, let's call it defilement-related truths, and the 4 suffering-related truths, he became the fully enlightened Buddha. So this is in very brief how the Buddha became a Buddha. All right? If you ever read something different, it may be correct according to some other Buddhist schools, but not according to the Theravada school of Myanmar.